I get out 1 day a week.
You're very much not alone, especially with younger generations. We learned recently that 1 in 4 millennials claim to have been diagnosed with depression.
Power relationships, you have cyberbullying, you have a massive percentage of profiles on Facebook that are fake.
Now imagine that you can't be at your grandson's birthday party, and you can take a picture like this. If you just take a look.
Oh, look at
that. We have the whole studio audience in place.
Look how neat.
I've got the ceiling, I've got the floor.
We have schools, community centers, healthcare, retirement homes, and could we envision a community for older adults within our city?
From the Zoomerplex in historic Liberty Village, the Zoomer with Marissa Semkiw.
Hello and welcome to the Zoomer. I'm Marissa Semkiw. Today we tackle a subject that demands our attention. That's social isolation. It's a particularly pressing issue for seniors, though other generations are not immune, as we will discuss. A wealth of research suggests that isolation and loneliness lead to a long list of health problems and risks, actually, including coronary heart disease, inflammation, high blood pressure, even death. So how instead do we promote health and longevity? For that, I turn to my panel. Today, I'm joined by a geriatrician, a social worker, a sociologist, and other experts to weigh in on a subject that cuts deep. But first, let's tee up the topic.
Can social isolation kill? New research suggests social isolation is twice as dangerous as obesity and on par with anxiety and stress at work. It's linked to disturbed sleep patterns, a compromised immune system, inflammation, and high levels of stress hormones. One recent study found isolation increases the risk of heart disease by 29% and stroke by 32%. Of particular concern is its impact on seniors because of disability and major life events like the loss of a spouse. It's estimated that more than 1/3 of Canadian seniors are at high risk. Seniors aren't alone. Social isolation is growing in parts of the general population. The General Social Survey says that the number of Americans who say they have no close friends has tripled in recent decades, with 0 being the most common response. Some social scientists argue, blame the internet and social media. They disconnect us from the real world. Ironic, since these innovations were designed to promote communication and connectedness.
Well, Dr. Schnall, in light of seeing what we just saw, I think that social isolation, it's not a new problem, but I think attention to it is growing. You're on the front lines as a social worker. If you could, what is isolation? Does it mean living alone? Does it mean having no friends? What is it?
And I think this is a really interesting question because when we talk about social isolation, we sometimes confuse it with loneliness. Sure. And before we start the discussion, I just want to make sure we understand the differences. Loneliness is a subjective component. It has nothing to do really with how many relationships or quality of relationships we have with others. Some people feel lonely and they're surrounded by lots of people. Our discussion today is more around social isolation, which talks about how connected people are to relatives, to social agencies, family doctors, neighbors, their communities. So they're both problematic, social isolation and loneliness. And loneliness has, some people say in Canada, up to 80% of older adults suffer from loneliness. This feeling of, I'm alone in the world, I don't have enough people or intimate relationships. Social isolation is smaller numbers. Internationally, between about 5%, 17%. And again, it's a bit of a more objective idea.
Dr. Menzies, we know that isolation is physically bad for us, but what are some of the more profound effects it has on the mind?
I know that if you have a smaller social network, you have a higher risk of dementia. Also, as a function of the disease, patients who are depressed will withdraw from their social networks.
Mm-hmm. Hugh, you live in Northern Ontario.
I do.
In a discussion earlier, we spoke about how you felt Northern Ontarians were particularly vulnerable to isolation. Why is that?
The reality is, if you live in a smaller community, what services do you have? If you lose your license, suddenly there's no public transit for you. If your friends have died around you, or even if you're not really that old, but Other people no longer have vehicles. There's a food desert for some people. They can't even access a grocery store, so now they're tied to a convenience store where the prices are higher, the selection is smaller, vegetables are harder to acquire. If one thing happens, it's that domino effect. One thing can trip up so many other things.
David, there are many people that aren't isolated.
Well, yeah, I think.
You know, and
that's true.
are those folks perhaps masking a larger issue here?
I've just pulled some numbers among the Zoomer population. So I live a fairly hectic lifestyle, 30% of all Canadians, but 20% of those 65 plus, 20% of those 70 plus. Pretty close, living a hectic lifestyle. I have a keen sense of adventure. 55% of all Canadians, 45% of all those 70 plus. Okay, and that adds up to 4 million people. So what happens is you have this model now of aging that says, wait, no, they're not lonely, they're not isolated, they've got that bucket list, they're traveling, they're having sex, they're doing all these wonderful, so in one sense it's good because it shows up a model of behavior that says this isn't inevitable. On the other hand, does all the publicity that attaches to this favorable view of aging, and thank heavens it's there, does that make it easier to gloss over the 1.4 million Canadians who report being lonely, and a smaller number who are, maybe physically isolated?
One thing I can add, just the company I work with measures in part emotions both in childhood and adulthood as predictors of what might happen to you in the future. And we know that Zoomers, when thinking back to their childhood, are only about a quarter of them would report feeling lonely during their childhood. Compare that with millennials today, which is 40%. In other words, boomers or Zoomers don't like being lonely. They're not okay with being lonely. So part of that is the good news. The bad news is millennials are actually okay with it, or rather they're more used to it. But for Zoomers, it's a different story.
When we come back, we'll continue this discussion, of course, and explore ways to help loved ones combat isolation. That's next.
In the Netherlands, there's groups of people in nursing homes where university students live for free in exchange for 30 hours of interactions with the older adults they live with. In terms of connection and isolation, win-win for both groups.
Welcome back. Well, we received a statement from the Ontario Minister of Seniors Affairs, Deepika Damerla, which reads in part, "Our government is committed to helping seniors lead a healthy, engaged, active, and inclusive lifestyle. To help meet this objective, our government launched Ontario's Action Plan for Seniors in 2013. Under this plan, we have introduced several initiatives to help keep seniors connected through age-friendly communities, elderly person centers, the Senior Community Grant Program, and active living fairs." And we are grateful for that statement. Now, I think that ideally, people that are living in communities, living in neighborhoods, if they see someone that's socially isolated, they might do something to reach out to them. But what are some of the more structured programs, Hugh, I'll start with you, that are effective in helping people get out of isolation?
Well, I think CARP, for one. I mean, if you don't come out to a CARP meeting once in a while, you're missing a great opportunity. The topics, I hear agreement out in the audience.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that because I'm the chair of a local chapter. I became involved because I believed in what was going on. And the message that was shared at the CARP meetings was something completely different. It was seniors guiding seniors. And I think you need to do that, but bringing specialists in as well.
Sure.
I had lunch with Minister Del Duca from Transportation, and he talked about the investment in transit. Very, very important for seniors. And then Minister Glenn Thibeault, Minister of Energy, talked about the announcement to reduce the price of hydroelectricity in this province. And both of those things are incredibly important. I think it takes some pressure. We talked about anxiety amongst the senior population. I think that that's part of what leads to isolation as well. Anxious to go out, anxious about opening the door and letting cold air into the house.
Part of it is what the government's doing, but I think it's also communities that are now starting to market themselves to seniors as retirement living destinations. I'm thinking of Prince Edward County, and I'm thinking of Windsor, of all places, are touting the fact that they have medical, they're inviting clinics to come in, they're inviting mini hospital, that's part of the deal. The emerging older group, who are maybe in their 70s, and then the kids in their 60s of 80-year-old parents, are now shopping for those destinations based on their ability to age and not be isolated.
A couple weeks ago, in part of a workshop through the Canadian Centre for Aging and Brain Health, and we were brainstorming for 2.5 days on thinking about new communities for older adults and dementia, and how could we make it part of life. And in Canada, we were not there yet. So for example, in the Netherlands, there's groups of people, nursing homes, where university students live for free in a particular nursing home in exchange for 30 hours of interactions with the older adults they live with. So think about, in terms of connection and isolation, win-win for both groups. So we're trying to think of how can we do things like that for our older adults in Canada. And we came up with some great ideas, and now we have to put them into actions, but there are pockets within Toronto, actually, where we have the infrastructure that we could create that. And for example, one of the areas we're thinking about was a part in Thornhill where we have schools, community centers, healthcare, retirement homes, condominiums for people that are older adults, and a mall. And could we envision a community for older adults within our city?
You know, it's interesting. I think actually, too, people are often reluctant or hesitant to say out loud that they need more social connection. So it almost forces it on them. What do we know about the impact of these types of communities and how impactful it would be should we bring them together?
They make a big difference. Yeah. You know, the Netherlands, they're sort of at the forefront. There is research showing if you have good social networks, you can ward off dementia. I think most people of the older generation are terrified of that, right? I was going to say, on just sort of a more positive note, I am kind of amazed sometimes in clinic when I have, for example, a landlord come in with an elderly person who's socially isolated, and they'll say, I'm worried about this person, they don't have anyone visiting them. I've taken it upon myself to come and see them every day. Aww. And it's sort of, it's amazing.
We need more stories like that, right?
Yeah.
We need more stories.
Yeah. But I think it puts it back on us. You know, think about where you live, who's around you, and who perhaps maybe needs you to check in on them.
I love hearing these stories, and I love these solutions, because, including the government ones, because they all involve one thing: contact, personal contact. In the studies that we do of millennials, Gen Xers, and boomers, there's one emotion that everyone feels strongly across all generations. It's the strongest emotion that everyone feels. Can anyone guess what it is?
Love?
Tired. Oh. Everyone is tired. So we know that for sure about every generation. What each generation wants is to feel real, to feel human. I might say it is being in the presence of another person face to face, to shake someone's hand, to give someone a hug.
I would be remiss to not bring up the role of technology. David, I'll go to you on this. How do you feel technology is helping seniors get out of isolation?
Well, already we see that the fastest growing groups on the social media are baby boomers right up until, let's say, about the age of 80-ish seniors. So they're using social media they can talk, they can Skype, they can FaceTime, they can post photos of the grandchildren, they can send emails. So there's already a tremendous surge in that kind of activity. The research shows that 87% of all Canadians say they went online yesterday. That's the most frequent measure that's used in the research we've seen. For 70 plus, it's 83%.
At Baycrest Health Sciences, we actually have online support groups for caregivers for those people that are isolated, they may be looking after a relative, a loved one who can't get out.
It's amazing.
And so the actual support groups, the old models of face-to-face support groups, we're now translating them into online because of technology.
And it's equally as effective?
Yes, and they're just as efficacious.
Yeah. All right. Exactly. Well, we'll pick this up when we come back. Technology is obviously improved connectedness, but could it also be a problem? That's next.
Massive percentage of profiles on Facebook that are fake. Many of them have one account that they let their mom and dad see, another account that they don't let their mom. No, I'm serious.
Welcome back. According to statistics, 50% of seniors between 65 and 75 are online today, but that number drops drastically as they age. So the folks at the University of Toronto Tag Lab have come up with a social media app just for them. Our Zed News videographer Darren Maharaj takes a look.
Here at the Sunnybrook Veterans Center, the University of Toronto's Technology for Aging Gracefully Lab has created a new, exciting, intuitive application for iPad that allows non-tech-savvy seniors the ability to communicate easier online.
The app is called Connections. It connects seniors to family, friends, and care providers, and it serves as a gateway to accessing technology and the internet.
That's my daughter in Toronto. And I don't have pictures, so that's my granddaughter.
It's a closed network, which helps a lot of seniors feel safe. So there's an audio message, which is a voice message. There's a video message.
I belong to Glasgow, too.
A photo and then text.
That's it. That's it. And it comes back to me and it goes to her. They can get in touch with me, and I just check every once in a while. And they love it because they're always in contact.
As you can see, the veterans here at Sunnybrook really enjoy using the app, especially Richard, who, let's say, has been quite busy with some extracurricular activities. You have two girlfriends?
Yeah. One lives in Ottawa, and the other lives in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Those two are like that. The one in Georgia would go squirrely if she found out I was even talking to the other one.
What? You know, there's a chance that they might find out about this when they see the news story. Best of luck, Richard. While developers of the Connections app are currently looking for investors to grow the platform in order to make it available online. If you're interested or would like to get a current copy on iPad, visit family.net. Here in Toronto, I'm Darren Maharaj for Zoomer News.
Thanks, Darren. Increasingly, social scientists are sounding alarms about the role the internet is playing in the gradual disappearance of personal interactions. A study from Stanford University maintained that technological development over the last decade may have improved our quality of life, but has also led to less desirable changes in our social behavior. So while the world is more connected than ever before, the quality of our face-to-face relationships is declining. Dr. Callegher, I think that there's a trend among millennials to replace face-to-face interactions with online interactions. We just spoke about how the online interactions with Zoomers is proving to be of benefit, but there are social scientists that are saying this is actually a problem for a totally separate generation, that being millennials. Your take?
Right. Yeah, we like to say the word social networking, but with millennials, it's really, they're socializing. You know,
yeah.
Zoomers social network. They use predominantly social media and email to keep in touch with their close ties, but also their weak ties. We had one Zoomer tell us that they don't have anyone on Facebook who they wouldn't want having their home phone number. They're not friend collectors. They don't associate number of contacts with status the way millennials do. But younger millennials are completely entrenched in digital media. They grew up with it. They recall also being lonely in their childhood, despite having so much digital connection, which makes them arguably used to it.
Yeah.
And that might have consequences in the future. It's okay to be alone when you have 6 hours of Netflix to keep you company.
I think there's some things we can see embryonically. So the internet as separate from social media. So there's a non-social media part of the internet that the Zoomers are all over for information gathering, and they are very comfortable gaining information, comparing, buying online. Massive users of it. But when it comes to social media, Zoomers are doing digitally what they used to do physically. So it's another form of doing the same thing. I want to talk to Bob. I grew up with Bob. Bob's in Winnipeg. I'm here. Hello, Bob, on Facebook or email or Skype. I'm not creating new types of social interactions that I didn't have physically. I'm just doing the same thing. Millennials are doing it a little bit. They're inventing or creating new forms of interaction that are first for them in their youth. This is the way I relate to people. I'm not just replacing physical contact with digital contact. I'm inventing a new form. Sorry.
Remember, to be a millennial growing up is to make your identity growth, your experimentation public. We often expect young people, even institutionally, create a profile, make sure you have a picture, let everyone see you. Now, if you're a young person going through various stages of your identity, that can be a challenge on your, in regard to your personality. Now, the other, in regard to risk, Zoomers know that in the 50s, you could be a 16-year-old and do something pretty silly. And there's a good chance that the entire world would not find out about that. Today is much different. You can screw up spectacularly now. Yeah. And many people can find out about that beyond the few people who were there. So Zoomers are very conscious of the difference, and we look to them as sociologists and social scientists to help guide the younger generations to be more responsible.
There's a behaviorally interesting thing that attaches to that, though. Zoomers are exchanging information. They're not using the digital connection to empower new relationships or to fake things, okay? So it's utilitarian. I want to show this photo to somebody. I want to say this, but the millennials are using it to further
retreat.
Further retreat, but also further power relationships. You have cyberbullying. You have a massive, we got to do a whole show on this, the massive percentage of profiles on Facebook that are fake. Many of them have one account that they let their mom and dad see, another account that they don't let their mom. No, I'm serious. And they're completely fake and completely virtual, a completely imaginary life that I use to feel good about myself digitally that isn't even real. And that's a whole other thing that's not true of the Zoomer generation.
But I want to, as a social worker, I'd be remiss not to talk about those older adults that live in poverty.
Yes,
and we tend to forget about them.
We do.
Never mind that they can't afford computers or phones, but internet.
All right, well, up next we put some goggles on and take digital outreach to a new level. Stay tuned.
You're gonna have a 360 surround experience. If you just reach out and press that button in the middle, and you'll see that now you're kind of flying over the Caribbean.
Welcome back. Well, we've been talking a lot about the role technology is playing in helping certain generations get out of isolation. Now we're going to take it to a whole new level, immersive media. I'm sure you've heard about it. I'm sure you've heard of VR because it includes VR. But let's talk about now how immersive media is actually going to help Zoomers escape isolation. Jesse and Karam are here. They are immersive media evangelists. They have a company called VRTO. Yeah, what have you brought for us?
So we have 3 different approaches to how you can deal with this surround experience. The first one I wanted to show you here is by our friends from Concept VR. They did this for Condé Nast, and it's to take you to the Cayman Islands. Yep. And you'll see how this is different than just a TV commercial. So if you'll just put that on her, Jesse.
Well.
What you're gonna do is you're gonna have a 360 surround experience.
Can everyone see this? Yeah, yeah.
All right,
okay.
so I'm gonna give you this controller. If you just reach out and press that button in the middle, and you'll see that now you're kind of flying over the Caribbean. See, there's a ship that you're on, and we're gonna have different scenes that you can go through. Now, the difference between television and a spherical video like this is that you have a vertical field of view, not just a horizontal one. So your body is more convinced that you're really there.
Yeah, this
and
is amazing.
When you're inside of it, the horizon seems to hold its position. So it's much more of an experiential thing than just watching TV. But of course, there's another thing I wanted to show you here, Marissa, if I can ever get you back from the Caribbean.
I'd like to just stay there all day.
Yeah.
And also, I'm a big daydreamer, so these are, rather than artificially picturing it in your mind, you can actually be in the spot you're picturing. So.
Yeah, so this is a camera that you can get fairly cheap. It's about $300 on Amazon these days. It's called the Ricoh Theta. And I wanted to show you that you can make your own home movies in 360. So,
everybody, can everybody smile? Because you'll all be on camera.
All right, so would you just press that button for me? So we just snapped a picture, and what it is, it has a front-facing camera and a back-facing camera, and right now it's stitching it all into one single sphere. Now imagine that you can't be at your grandson's birthday party, and you can take a picture like this, and they'll send it to you just over a normal email, and now you can see here, if you just take a look,
look at
that we have the whole studio audience in place.
Look how neat.
I've got the ceiling, I've got the floor. I can zoom out and see everybody at the same time. But more interestingly, for this, for what we're talking about today, look at how it feels like I'm standing right in the middle of the room, exactly as it happened, and everybody's in the exact position.
So for a senior, for instance, or somebody, I mean, it could be anyone who's at home by themselves and they're unable to make it to an event for whatever reason. Maybe it's mobility issues, maybe it's circumstance. They can actually feel like they're somewhere, perhaps in the environment.
Yeah, and of course you can also shoot a video version of this as well. You know, if you're just on the other side of the world, this gives you a far richer idea of like what it might have been like to be there.
Yeah.
And again, when the mind can go there, the body tends to be able to follow. The final thing I wanted to show you is social VR. So that again is companies like AltSpace and High Fidelity, and soon Facebook too, will allow you to basically interact with other people in real time. And those real-time movements are what really sell that idea of being together with somebody. This is called the Gear VR. You can get this for about $65 at Best Buy. And all you do is you snap your Samsung phone in there, and it's the same thing. What it does is it uses the phone's accelerometer, positional tracking. So when you move, again, the floor feels like it's in a static position, and it really convinces you that you're having that experience physically.
I bet it would be a really emotional experience too for some. We've all seen those commercials where people get sort of emotional when they put these things on their head. I imagine it would give off that same sort of feel, wouldn't it?
Sometimes I think of it as us peddling wonder, because I've not met anybody who hasn't said, whoa, this is just transportive.
Yeah, but of course these aren't actual virtual reality. The third approach you've brought is.
Right, so that is a spherical video. That means it plays back, that video is always that video. But true virtual reality is when the computer is creating that environment for you. That means if I see something in that world, I can pick up something, I can throw something. And not only that, but if I'm here and my family is in China and I pass them a vase, they can pick up that vase from me.
Yeah.
And that kind of exchange in real time is very convincing to the mind.
Yeah.
And you'll feel as if that happened to you like a memory.
And again, I have to ask, what stories can you share with us that you've seen this kind of technology be used to help someone get out of isolation, some of the very things we were just talking about on the panel?
Absolutely. Well, my grandfather is 92 years old now, and he lives at home with my parents because they wanted to have him nearby. And he used to be a pilot in the Amazon. He flew a Cessna plane. I put him into one of these things, and he just had his hands up. He was having the time of his life. And it was as if, you know, we just saw the years sort of like peel off, and he just seemed to have such a great memory of that day.
Yeah.
So I've seen it firsthand that it gives you this boost of energy. It sort of like wakens up your senses.
Now, your company, it's called VRTO. Why did you get into this?
I got into it for this very reason. I wanted to do something that I felt could have a huge global impact on steering a new medium that people with mental illnesses, social anxiety, exposure therapy. If you're afraid of spiders, you can go in there and they start fluffy and then turn more and more realistic.
Quarter century worth of research on that. It's incredible.
Yeah, there's a very long history of research in the effects for PTSD and so on.
Incredible. Karam, Jesse, thank you so much for bringing your technology here today. I'm so excited to see what the future of it holds. When we come back, we'll be talking about animal therapy. Stay tuned.
And everybody around who knew this woman looked at her and thought, she can talk, she can interact.
Look at that.
Yes,
That's amazing.
because of Stevie.
I'm sitting here with Holly, a volunteer dog therapist, and she's brought her furry friend Stevie with us today. Holly, I have to ask, how did you get into volunteer dog therapy?
I did my graduate work at Sick Kids, and I saw a dog walking around there with a handler and thought, what a wonderful thing to do, to share your dog with people who aren't at home and who need that attention.
What is dog therapy?
We're friendly visitors. So we visit at retirement homes, hospitals, long-term care centers, really anywhere that people are away from home and just need a little bit of compassion, a little bit of non-judgmental love.
Oh, that's so nice. What do you have any stories that you can share with us about some of the benefits that Stevie has brought to people? Because of course, what we do know about dog therapy is that the benefits to mental health are intangible.
They absolutely are. We visited a place called Fife House where there are people who need supportive care. And there's a woman there in a wheelchair, and everybody thought she didn't hear. She would sit, it's a group visit, she would sit at the end of the table and eat and be in the crowd, but not interact with the crowd. And we have these little cards, these little therapy dog cards, they're little trading cards, and I had given her cards. But she'd never spoken to us. When the dogs come in, she lights up, she gets very excited and smiles. She came to me one day and started talking to me. We came into the facility and she started talking to me. She had dropped her purse and the card had fallen out and gone in the mud. And she was very upset and needed another card. And everybody around who knew this woman looked at her and thought, she can talk, she can interact.
Look at that.
Yes,
That's amazing.
Because of Stevie. So
That's incredible.
I took a picture of her and with Stevie and I framed it and gave it to her. And she was thrilled. It makes a big difference.
All right, well, thank you so much, Holly. Thank you, Stevie, for coming in.
Thank you.
And I'm going to head back over to the table now because we have a question from one of our audience guests.
Hi there.
What's your name?
Barbara Pierce.
Nice to meet you, Barbara.
Nice to meet you.
What's your question for the panel?
I suffer from depression. I was diagnosed in 1997, and after that, I realized that I had been depressed for a long, long time prior to that. How do you motivate yourself? How do you get out? How do you make yourself happy? I've heard about separation, I've heard about depression, I've heard about isolation, but I haven't heard about happy. You know, I don't remember the last time that I really felt happy.
Does someone want to tackle? Yeah.
Really.
So you bring an interesting point, and I think it's the same idea as isolation. These are subjective constructs that we have as humans. What make us happy? We don't have a list of things that make every human happy. So it's finding, and stepping back, I have to say how brave you are to ask this kind of question because it's very hard and one that a lot of people deal with. So finding happiness is around finding meaningful activities. What makes us as humans happy is finding things in life that give meaning to who we are.
Right.
So it's finding those things, and you only know. Is it going out for coffee with somebody you care about?
I don't have much at this time.
Yeah.
I did join a community center.
Yeah.
And last year I was able to go swimming and I was doing really, really well. Yeah. And I don't know, I had a really... And now I'm trying to get out of the house to get back at it, you know, because I really enjoyed it. But I might get out one day a week.
So I have to say that the fact that you've come onto this show...
I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, that you've come to this show is getting out. The fact...
Yeah.
If it wasn't for my friend Anne, I wouldn't be here because I wouldn't even go out and celebrate my birthday this year. I couldn't do it.
So it's finding the ends of this world,
right,
to help you find meaning and things that make you happy. And even though right now you may not appear happy, you're connected. You're connected to this whole community.
Right.
The fact that you're asking for help is part of becoming happy.
Well, I hope it works.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, you know, you're amazing for coming out and actually sharing your story with people, because I think it makes it easier for other people to connect. So thank you.
I'm really willing and anxious to try to help myself. You can see I'm like this, you know, all the time, and jerky and panic attacks, and I got to get moving. I got to get back to life and living and doing again like I used to. This is really nuts, literally.
Yeah.
So,
but it is worth mentioning that you're very much not alone, especially with younger generations. We learned recently that 1 in 4 millennials claim to have been diagnosed with depression. 1 in 4. I couldn't believe it. Had to corroborate it with other studies. It's been corroborated. 22% with social anxiety. So it is a need that society has to respond to. And by doing what you just did, I think you set a very strong example for others in your position. I'd love to give you a hug, maybe after.
Yeah. We all want to give you a hug. All right. Time for a short break. As we leave you, here's what you had to say about some recent episodes of The Zoomer.
Regarding our politically correct show, Susan comments, political correctness has gone too far when our leaders make it a criminal offense. I have had things said to me that hurt. I'd cry and keep going. It makes us a very weak society. It builds more walls and will destroy democracy. We are Canadians. United we stand. But this divides us and we will fall. Michael tweets some words of encouragement. Keep up the great work. Don't be afraid to cover anything. You are a voice. Thank you for the kind message, Michael. On our DIY downsizing Facebook post, Elaine asks, will this be run again? Thanks for checking in on this. We don't have an encore date scheduled yet for this episode, but it's now available to watch online at www.thezoomertv.com. Enjoy. Thank you for all the comments and questions, and don't stop posting.
Welcome back. Well, we've tackled a difficult subject, but it demands our attention, that's for sure. So I'll turn to my panel now to leave us with some closing thoughts, starting with you, Dr. Schnall.
I like the fact that we're actually having a discussion and bringing awareness to the topic of isolation in older adults. It's a symptom of other problems like perhaps depression, like perhaps cognitive impairment. So I'm glad to have had the opportunity to, all of us collectively, the audience included, bringing it out of the closet.
David.
Well, I feel optimistic, partly because we're talking about it, but partly because I think the subject is going to morph a little bit. The model is going to change slightly from one where we have a static population of very old, physically isolated, and therefore dependent people. In that world, what programs can we come up with? How do we reach out to them? What do we do for them? We're going to morph from that into a population led by the boomers who are entering that, but are also caregivers, being one of, I don't want to say self-sufficiency, but more control. I know this is coming if I'm of this age. I can see it coming. I want to participate in the solution. I don't want to just be that elderly person hoping that the government comes up with the right plan or that the institutions go. I want to be participating in that, and that's where I think the technology, I want those new products, I want those new services, I want to design some of them, but I think that's where it's going.
Hugh.
Well, I'm going to have to bring in the rest of Canada into this. I do come from a more northern position, 375 kilometers away, Sudbury. But you know, we can't forget linguistically, culturally, there are communities that we should be including in this discussion as well. The Franco-Ontarian community, the Franco community across this country, the people who speak Cree, Ojibwe, the people who speak Inuktitut. We have to think about those communities as well, how we can help them and how they can help us. I mean, it's not just a north-south, we provide the solutions. Maybe they have some solutions for us as well, as I think Sudbury has some solutions for Toronto.
Dr. Menzies.
I'm so happy we're talking about this, and I think, like Dr. Schnall was mentioning, you know, if you have someone in your life who is socially isolated, think about, is this maybe something that's because of a medical illness, and see if you could try and get them to get help. Or if they are just truly socially isolated, maybe think about how you could change that.
And you, Dr. Callegher?
I'm inspired by something that you said earlier, Marissa, when I asked what the most common emotion was. And it's tired, but you said love. And unfortunately, it's not. It's not the most common emotion. And what people want is to feel human and to feel real. I teach in a sports marketing program as well. And virtual reality technology is just one new technology, it's an exciting one along the continuum of standard television, HD, 4K, now virtual reality, VR. But at the end of the day, I'm still on my couch by myself, slapping the hand of an invisible person, or shaking the hand. I may get a vase in return, which is great, and we need to keep doing these things. But when it comes to love, love is both an emotion and a behavior. It's not just an emotion, it's a behavior. So yes, call, but show up too. And that's how you can show love, by showing up.
I agree. Okay. Here, here. Thank you to my panelists, to the audience. Thanks for watching this edition of theZoomer. It's time to zoom out.